You look like fun to me. You look a little like somebody I know. All Rainbow Idols are getting a little show today. And I can tell that you're all in. Cause I can hear my heart beating. That wasn't in tune, were it? I'm just gonna have a little swig of water. Ba-dum, ba-dum, ba-dum. I hear it and I know. Hello everybody, it is me, Kylie Minogue. I am a very, very large Kylie Minogue because I think that she probably measures in about 2 feet shorter than, actually, no, about 1 foot shorter than me. Which doesn't sound a lot, but it is quite a lot. I am really warm, I'm always hot. Too hot. Hot's damn. Call the police and a fireman. I am actually getting ready to go to a gig today. Just give me legs a little waft as well, because I have veted them and that just makes them really sweaty for some reason, like, you know, in the kneecap fold at the back. So that's not nice. You don't need to know about that though. My hair was caught in my brow coverage there, so that's not great. Oh, that's still really, really tacky as well, just like me. So we're here once again today to do another I Kissed a Boy review. So today is episodes 5 and 6. If there are parts where, you know, it kind of jumps from me not being in a full face to suddenly being in a full face, then you know that it's because I started to panic and I couldn't do it. So the last time that we left the boys and the they thems and Ms. Danny Minogue, we didn't know who was going to sort of like turn for who and things. We initially, I can't remember what order it goes in, but the obvious ones do all turn for each other. I need to put on some primer. Caleb and Jake, they turn for each other, and so do Sabomi and Gareth. It is very, very sweet, their little love connections that they've got going on. I've recently started saying love connections. It's never actually been something in my vocabulary until watching this show, and they don't say love connections, but I do. Then we have Joseph and Ross, who do not turn for each other, which we kind of knew was going to happen anyway, because they'd already sort of said their piece to each other, you know, they weren't interested in each other in that way. So when you don't turn for somebody, Danny Minogue says to you, you know, is there anybody that you're interested in? That's my Australian accent. It was so good that I made the mirror slam into the thing. But Ross obviously says CJ, and then Joseph says Ben. And Ben, like, so at the end of the last one, he was kind of saying, oh, you know, I'm going to have a little chat with Ben and see what he thinks. I don't know if that happened or not, but it doesn't seem like it did, because Ben looks quite surprised, as does Ollie and like everybody else who is in the queue waiting to get a snog. I do think, knowing what we know now after watching the episode, I do think that Ben and Joseph would have been a much better match than what does happen, but I'm getting ahead of myself. We then have Ollie and Ben come up, and they obviously don't turn for each other either. Danny once again says, who are you interested in? Ollie says that he's interested in Dan, the other moustached fellow, and Ben says that he's interested in Vitor. Which, you know, is obviously sad for Joseph, because I think if you say somebody and they don't say you like first pick, then that's you sort of going home. It's sad for Joseph, but I do think this competition and like the types of characters that are maybe like pulled in by reality TV, I don't really think that they really, I really don't think that they are really like conducive with how Joseph is, you know, in terms of like he's quite a quiet person, it seems, you know, he's not looking for much drama, and obviously these sort of shows, they are casting people based upon how much drama they can kind of get out of them, really. And then we roll out the boys, the new boys, the heartbreakers, the heartbreakers. First one who comes up is CJ, and he says, you know, he wants to kiss Ross. So Ross is buzzing off of his little tits, and they have a little snog, and then they go and stand over on the bench. Where's my little stippling brush then? There you are, I think. Is that you? Nope. Where did you go now? Where did you go now? So yeah, so that's all cool and fine and dandy, you know, they seem like a nice little match. They seem quite happy with each other. Although I'm not sure how happy they are like going forward, because I have had a little gander on the old Instagram and it doesn't seem like they follow each other anymore, so I wonder if there's drama there, but we will find that out because there's going to be a reunion. Who do we have next? So then we have Vito, who picks Ben, and they have a little smoocheroo, and that's all very good, you know, like they seem to be okay with that. They go and sit down. And then like we have the big finale. I haven't blended my nose. So there's obviously been this sort of, ooh, who's he gonna choose with Dan and Mikey and Ollie? And it's all like, oh, who's it gonna be? And I really did think, like in my heart of hearts, that Dan was gonna pick Mikey, you know, just because like we'd kind of been, I don't know, like they seemed more close from the editing and things. So I was like, oh, you know, it's kind of a shoo-in that they're gonna like end up together, but he doesn't. He picked Ollie, and I found that a bit strange, just because it kind of like it jumps from them like choosing who they're gonna pick in the kiss-off to like them talking about how they feel in their confessionals. And Dan says Ollie would fit in really well with my lifestyle, and I really like his sense of identity and stuff. But then he says like Mikey is completely different to anybody who I've ever met before. And he kind of says, I don't know if it was in this episode or if it was in the previous one, but he says that he attracts like a lot of players and things, and it feels like, although I'm not saying that Ollie is a player, because it does seem like he is genuinely interested in, you know, like building a romance, but it feels like he's gone for Ollie because it's easier for him. He said that like he was here to find something different. Mikey was something different, but then he didn't pick him. So obviously Mikey is a bit gutted. He makes some sort of football reference here. He says something about like being like the last man or something like that. I mean, it was a bit confusing because you know your audience here. Off Mikey and Joseph go. Another thing that I was thinking as well actually about Dan not picking Mikey was, so again, there was this thing over, you know, I could really fit into my lifestyle and stuff. And like, although I do think it's admirable that Mikey was like, yeah, I want to sort of fit into your lifestyle and, you know, like I do want these new experiences. I think it seemed almost one-sided at times, that he was willing to like change some of his lifestyle for Dan, whereas Dan seemed very like, this is my lifestyle, it's not going to change. And you have to fit into that. So I do think in some ways, you know, I mean, I don't know if any of them have stayed together, I don't know what's going on there. But from a longevity point of view, after the show, I mean, they don't live anywhere near each other, and it seemed very much like Mikey was going to have to sort of dance to Dan's beat of his drum. I don't think they have a little cheers to them actually, like they did to old Bobsky, but you know, we'll say no more about it. I wouldn't let it come between us. Whilst they're obviously sat around having a drink and what have you, I was kind of watching, so the other couples that have gotten together that night, they're like very much so all over each other, which is not an indicator as to whether or not, you know, you are actually interested in each other or you are a good match. My face is sweating and it's not doing things favours. It just seems like Vito and Ben are not very like lovey-dovey, like cuddly, which is, like I said, it's fair enough, you know, not everybody does the same things, not everybody expresses emotion in the same ways, etc. But I just found it a bit interesting because I was like immediately after that sort of very high pressure environment, you would think if you were really, really interested in the person, you would think that you'd sort of, you know, show them a bit of affection or whatever. But you know, it is early days and you just kind of think, well, hopefully, you know, something will happen with them and they'll like get into showing each other a bit more affection. There is then a moment where Ben is talking to Dan and he's saying, you know, he's not my usual type about Vito. And I was just like, this seems very like early to, I don't know, like, obviously, you know, you have to chat to your friends and stuff, don't you, about how you feel about somebody, but I was kind of like, this seems a bit mean in some ways, that you kind of stopped in the villa with somebody, but then you kind of telling everybody, oh yeah, he's not really my type or whatever. I did feel a little bit sorry for Vitor in that moment. But yeah, it just, I don't know, it kind of all felt a bit like maybe Ben had picked the wrong person. But you know, we all make mistakes, don't we? So it's absolutely fine. Where's my nose contouring brush? Oh, I just dodged brushes all over the floor. Hello. Sorry, I'll pop you back now. Seriously though, where is the nose contouring brush? Following that, so they all kind of go to bed, and Vito says to Ben, you know, shall I go into Ollie's bed, which is where, like, right next to Ben's. It's very difficult with all these names now, it's getting a bit much for me. Ben is obviously like, yeah, I think it makes sense for you to sort of be in that bed now. But then I think Vito kind of takes that as, yeah, let's push the beds together sort of thing. And then there's like a little exchange about how Ben doesn't want that on the first night, so they kind of just decide to separate the beds, and like it's all fine from at that stage anyway. But to be fair, actually, we have like a bit of a extra like bit of knowledge as the audience, because you know, we see the diary room moments. We see Ben saying, you know, it's a bit much for me, kind of how excitable he is and how like touchy-feely he is, but hopefully, you know, that's just for tonight because he's excited after the kiss off, and hopefully that'll sort of calm down. The following day, they're all like, oh, did you all have a nice night? You know, they're all like still in bed chatting to each other across the bedroom. Vito says, you know, we're like an old married couple already, we're already sleeping in separate beds, which like I get was a joke. Like when I first watched it, I was like, I felt a bit awkward with how Ben sort of reacted, because his face was like absolute thunder, and I just thought, oh god, like we're about to get some drama here and I love it. He didn't look very thrilled at him sort of saying that, which later on, I mean, we do kind of find out that, you know, he felt like he was sort of making fun out of him a little bit, but in that moment, because like we don't have the sight of what's happening later, it did just feel like he was sort of having a little joke, but like I say, Ben didn't take it that way. And then like we sort of see Vito trying to like give Ben a little bit of a smooch on the bed, and Ben's just like not reciprocating it at all. Sometimes you've got to read the signs a little bit, haven't you? So then we have a game of, I think they call it the Big Gay Olive Tree of Truth. Which, I mean, like, in this show it seems like whatever it is, they're just like, we'll just slap the big gay or the gay or queer like on the front of it, and then that makes it gay, so it's fine. The game is there purely to create a bit of drama. 1 second, just let me get these eyebrows right. Starts off all cute, you know, we're just having a laugh, boys, we're just having fun. And it's like, you know, who's the biggest drama queen, who's got the best sense of style. Whoever's picked it, they have to like hand over the branch to somebody. Which, by the way, it's also in Prosecco bottles. So we've gathered now that like the people at the BBC think gay people love Prosecco and only Prosecco. We get like those sort of cute, fun ones, and then it's kind of like, these aren't even slightly even, are they? Can I fix that? Does that look any better? Nope. Fab. I fucked it. And then we kind of get onto stuff like, oh, you know, who's the most judgmental? Who do you think hasn't got as close of a bond with their sort of partner as you have? And like quite a few of these start going to Ben, and it's just very, very awkward because like Vito stood right next to him, somebody's handed him the like, who do you think isn't that interested in their partner or doesn't have as much of a good relationship going at the moment, which, by the way, this relationship has had to be built in like the space of a couple of days at most, if not like one evening after they've like sort of decided that they're gonna give it a go together. So I mean, I don't know how you can actually say they don't look like they're gonna be a good relationship, because it's like, well, they hardly even spent any time whatsoever together, so it just feels a bit strange to me. But I mean, again, it's for TV, isn't it? After this, obviously, you know, tensions are a little bit high, and folks are starting to like sort of talk separately, you know, like in their little groups. Vito, Caleb and Ross are like quite chummy, and they're all having a little chat, and you know, Vito is kind of saying that he feels a little bit what's the word, like a bit rejected, I guess, by Ben. and you know, he's like a bit upset about that, which I think kind of like adds a bit of, you know, like it kind of like galvanizes the other two to sort of like have an issue with Ben a little bit. Ben is saying to Gareth and Ollie, which by the way, I love the fact that like Ben and Ollie are just like friends now. I think that's really sweet that like they have actually managed to still keep some sort of relationship. Because usually when people say, oh yeah, let's just like stay friends, it is kind of like, well, that's never gonna happen. Interspersed into this, we see like lots of cute things with Caleb and Jake. You know, they're just like, they're having all sorts of cute little chats. It's very nice. I mean, I've not actually written anything specifically for them, but yeah, it just seems like, you know, they are getting on like a proverbial house on fire. That was my Australian accent again. Ollie and Dan are having a little chat, you know, they're saying like that they are looking for something more serious and that they really like each other, etc, etc. You know, it's all very nice. It's nice to see love, isn't it? We all love love. There is also a section with Ollie and Dan where Ollie goes to like get in the shower after being in the pool, and then like Dan follows him in, and it's all just like, it's a bit like softcore porn, if I'm being totally honest with you. I was like, whoa, Jesus Christ, all this kicking off on the BBC again. I mean, last week we were talking about cruising and shit, so I mean, it's all kicking off at the moment. That evening, it all starts kicking off. So they decide to have like a little dinner party, you know, a little cute dinner party. And like all the way through this day, you know, I mean, it was kind of more so just after the chat that Ross, Caleb and Vitor had. Ross and Caleb are basically saying like, you know, we're not happy about how things are going with Ben and Vitor, and we're gonna like say something about it, which is like, okay, like, fair enough, like, you know, you go off sis. It's a bit awkward basically. So what happens is, so I do think, so when I was first watching it, I was like, oh god, like Ross is really coming in hot here, isn't he? But then like I have rewatched it because like obviously I'm doing these videos, so I want to, you know, make sure that I get like a good view of it. And initially being the operative word, Ross is not super problematic in how he speaks to Ben, but then it does sort of, it starts to get quite heated. You know, he's in the diary room area, whatever, saying like that he thinks that it's disgusting how like Ben's treating Vitor and stuff. And it's like, it's not disgusting for somebody to set out clear boundaries with a partner. And earlier on in the day as well, Vitor and Ben had actually discussed this between themselves, and you know, like Ben had kind of, I mean, to be fair, Ben had said to Vitor, just let me come to you a little bit, which I get could be taken possibly in the wrong way, but I don't think it was meant in the way of like, you know, just you being on back at door for me sort of thing. I think he was more saying like, you know, I want to take it slower and you know, just let me sort of take things at my own pace. Maybe would have been a better way to phrase it, but nonetheless, I mean, I think like that was kind of very clear that was how he meant it. All just starts getting a bit heated and like a bit fucking wild, really. All the way through it, I was thinking like it is difficult when you are kind of quite a lovey-dovey, like touchy-feely type of person to maybe rein that in. However, if somebody has expressed to you that they don't like that, then you have to just not do it, because you don't want to sort of get into that like weird territory where it starts to feel a little bit like unconsensual. And I think like, I mean, I don't know, it does kind of get into this sort of territory for me anyway, from like what I can sort of see is going on. I don't know, I mean, as I've said, you know, Ben has told Vitor, this is how I feel about this, so it's not really like there's many questions there. It's being expressed, but then, I mean, to be fair, Vitor still, from what I can see, he's not been too lovey-dovey with him since he's said that. But the fact that he's kind of like got a problem with it, it just kind of, it's a bit alarming really in some ways to me. Because obviously like some of the other boys feel like Ben is getting a little bit bullied here, which, I mean, agreed really. They all start sort of stepping in, so we've got like Gareth has said something, and then Dan also says something, and it's just a bit like, oh god. But then luckily, Saved by the Bell, Danny comes in, with a big surprise, and we're left on a cliffhanger again, but luckily we get 2 episodes at a time, so it wasn't too much of a cliffhanger. I just spat all over myself. So we are now on to episode 6. We left off at the dinner party. Everybody were getting fucking hot and wild. And then Danny came in and she was like, "Hi guys, I've got another fucking Spanish throw into the works." And she certainly has in true Danny Minogue style. She brings in 2 new Heartstoppers, which are Dan and Jake W, who I am from now on going to refer to as Jake number 2. So Matty, wait, Matty? Yeah, did I say Matty? I hope I said Matty. But anyway, it's Matty if I did call him Dan. Matty works in sustainability, and then Jake number 2 works as an actor, and he's currently working in a school with children with like different needs. But Matty is wearing, is he Matty or is he Matt? I'm gonna call him Matty. If he's Matt, then I'm sorry. Matty is wearing like a shirt, like a black shirt that is just like completely open. So immediately I was like, oh, he loves himself a bit. But like, as the episode sort of goes on, you kind of see that, you know, maybe he isn't all that he sort of seems initially, in like in a sort of good way. So that's always nice. I mean, maybe he was just warm, to be fair. I mean, if I looked like Matty, then I too would be wearing open shirts all the time. You won't be able to stop me. And then Jake number 2 is just like, he's in his nice little Hawaiian shirt. And when they come in, Danny says, because you're new here, you have to take a boy of your choice on a date. And Matty chooses Ben, much to Vito's chagrin. And so I think, do you know what? The gears don't race. That was the line of the season. But then in strolled Jake, and he was just so, I mean, in the words of Ross, he is a hun. So they were like, right, who do you want to go on a date with then, Jake? And he were like, right, lads, get your willies out. And immediately I was just like, this guy's gonna be a good laugh, innit? And he's got like a proper, like, you know, like a Stacey Solomon sort of London accent. I think it's Essex maybe. And he just seems like a real good laugh, and that's what we need. Especially like after all this bloody drama that's just kicked off at that sodding dinner party. So he does pick Dan, and at first I was like, oh no, is this gonna spell the end for Ollie and Dan? And there is actually a cutaway as well where Ollie's like, oh, I wasn't concerned at that point, and I was like, oh, are you concerned at a later point then, Ollie? What's happening here? But I was just overthinking it. Because Jake number 2 does ask Dan, you know, are you sort of with anybody in the Masseria? Which, I mean, you have to be in order to still be in the Masseria. Dan immediately says, yeah, you know, I'm with Ollie. And then he's like, oh, he's the other guy with the tash. To which Jake number 2 then says, oh, he was actually my second pick for the day. And then it cuts to him and he's like, you know, maybe we could be in a throuple and we could like get a little pug and live in Greenwich together. And I was like, well, you know, you go off if that, I mean, I do keep thinking this, to be fair. So obviously like Vito has expressed that he's been in sort of multi-partnered relationships and some not monogamous ones as well in the past. So I do keep thinking this at the kiss-off. I'm like, what if they decide to go for 2? Then what happens? Because like, a bit homophobic, innit, to not sort of allow that to go ahead if that's what they want. We also see Ben and Matty on their little date. And like, this is where you kind of start to see that, you know, maybe Matty isn't like as full of himself as you think, because he does kind of say things like, oh, hopefully next time like I won't be so awkward and like so panicked and stuff. So I do think like he does very well at hiding any sort of insecurity, but I think, you know, it does seem like he's maybe a little bit insecure. Don't know what for, in the words of One Direction. The boys all get back into talking about what had happened at the dinner party. Vito is saying to Ross, you know, it's not your fault, like what you did wasn't wrong, you're a good person, etc, etc. Which I'm not debating whether or not Ross is a good person, like I'm sure he is. However, I do think like it was a little bit unacceptable the way that him and Caleb both came for Ben at that dinner table. It just felt very, very icky and I did not enjoy it. And we also see that Caleb and Jake are having a little chat, and Jake just basically says like, I didn't like what I sort of saw. And he's not like super affectionate with Caleb that night either. Like when they go to bed, you know, he's not like cuddly, and he don't like give him a kiss back and stuff, at least from like what we can see. And you kind of think, oh, I hope like they're not on the rocks because of this. But I do think as well, you know, you do have to take all this into account when you're getting together with somebody. If they are very volatile and you're like quite a calm, chilled person, maybe that can be good for the relationship, because maybe you can like balance each other out a little bit. But also, you know, maybe it's not great for the relationship, because it might mean that the person who is a lot calmer, I've just dropped my eyeliner on the floor, because it may mean that the person who is a lot calmer might sort of have their peace disturbed regularly by the person who is a bit more volatile. I've got powder all over this t-shirt, which isn't ideal, is it really? The following morning, they're all kind of like, oh, you know, did you have a nice time last night with your respective dates? Funny Jake is all like, oh yeah, you know, Dan were a great guy, like thank you for showing me sort of the way around and stuff. Ben says, you know, it was the best date that I've had in here, about him and Matty, and that's just like, you know, Vitor is obviously quite upset about that. He says, you know, that he doesn't feel great that he said that in his little confessional, so, you know, quite sad for Vitor really in that moment. Following that, we just sort of like enjoy the day in the villa, you know, as the folks do. They all, you know, they're just sort of going about the business. There's a bit more soft porn with Ollie and Dan. Do you know what, actually? I've not seen loads of Gareth and Sabomi recently, but maybe, you know, that's fine. I mean, we don't need to do it all the time, but I'm like, what's going on with you two? Are you two all right over there? So we then see a few more chats with like Vitor and other people where, you know, Vitor is kind of saying that it's a bit complicated with him and Ben. And he's also kind of expressing that he's maybe interested in Matty as well. We also see him kind of like flirting with Matty by the pool, and Ben is like very closely watching from across the pool on a little sun lounger. And Gareth is sort of giving Ben like some tips on how to flirt and things. And Ben says like, if Vitor and Matty end up together, then I don't think I'll be able to sort of cope, which I just found very funny, because I was like, yeah, I do get that. You would be a bit salty about it, wouldn't you? And we also see a moment with Matty and some of the other boys. So I believe that there is Gareth. There's definitely Gareth, I think Ollie, Dan, and then obviously Ben is there. And they're talking about like, Matty basically says that he finds that he can't be with somebody unless there is a sort of romantic, like a feeling connection there. So he's not one to sort of go out on nights out and like just randomly get with people, because like that doesn't feel right for him. And he says, you know, he does kind of identify in that way, is that he can't sort of be in a relationship with somebody without first having that very like strong bond initially. And here, Ben, like, I got quite pissed off about this. Ben was so rude. He was like, oh, so, you know, like, is that actually how you are then? Or are you just, like, sort of joking? And I was like, yeah, this is clearly how he is, because he's telling you all about it. And I was just like, God, Ben. Like, it was just very, very insensitive, I felt like, anyway. Luckily for Ben, Matty sort of takes it in his stride, and he's just like, no, that is how I sort of identify it. You know, again, it is very interesting, because like when you see the like I Kissed a Boy sort of program initially, maybe you do think, oh, like it's just gonna be like loads of like randy gay men in a villa like just having a fab old time, which, you know, would have also been great drama. But it's nice to see that we are sort of getting like a little bit of like representation of different types of queer people. There is also a chat between Ross and CJ about kind of how Ross has grown up in the foster care system with his sister, and like they have been separated and things in the past, and that's quite interesting as well. It's used in a way of, you know, maybe this is why sometimes Ross is a little bit more volatile. I think like that's kind of what the producers are getting at there. And I 100% do get that, you know, like if you have gone through a tough time, then you are a lot less likely to kind of take people's shit. Similarly to what I said about Ben in the previous episodes, it's going to impact how you are and how you deal with like situations and confrontation and things. But yeah, it was interesting to like find that out about him. And like I think people probably think, oh, you know, like he's just here for the drama, and like he possibly is here for the drama, but you know, there's more than one facet to a person, isn't there? Do my lips look thin and villainous? Jake number 2, so funny Jake. He's very interested in Matty as well. Vito was talking to Jake about how he is interested in Matty, as in like Vito was. And then Jake kind of goes, oh, like I'm interested in him too. And then Vito's like, oh, you get involved then with Matty. And I think it's because like Vito wants to still be with Ben, and like he's trying to like make a situation whereby Ben can't be with Matty, because which is like, again, it's a bit awkward, isn't it? Because it's like, sorry, I'm just putting my makeup away. I'm not like squatting to have a shit or all. If he doesn't want to be with you, then you shouldn't be sort of scuppering his chances of other connections just because like you maybe can't have him. That was just sort of how it came across to me anyway. And we also see like Caleb saying to Jake number 2, obviously not Jake number 1, because that'd be well awkward, because Jake number 1 and Caleb are both fatty like rabbits, aren't they? Kind of see him also like encouraging Jake number 2 to speak to Matty about how he feels, and eventually, you know, after, I'm not sure if this is after the little fashion show that they have. So they have like a big gay fashion show, and that's really cute. So there's a really funny bit in that as well, where I think like Gareth's doing something to Jake number 2, and he's like, you know, just like preening him, prepping him. And then Jake number 2 is like, do you think I could be a model? And Gareth's like, no. He plucks up the courage, does Jake number 2. The young ingenue that she is. I think at the start as well, he referred to himself as like a retired twink, which, I mean, we've all been there. He sums up the courage to tell Matty how he feels. And Matty, like, doesn't reciprocate it. And he's actually really nice about it as well, to be fair. Like, he doesn't laugh. He, again, like, similarly to like how Ben was, he just says, because obviously like Ben went through this with Ross, he just says, I think you're really great, but like I'm not interested in you in that way. And he also says something about like I see you as like a little brother sort of figure, like I feel quite protective of you, which was sweet. And then like it cuts to Jake number 2, and he's like, it's giving heartbreak. And I was like, oh, bless Jake number 2. But hopefully, you know, he can get into his trouble. I mean, there is actually a part during that fashion show as well where him, Ollie and Dan all have like a little 3-way kiss, and I was like, maybe the 3-way couple is going to come to fruition, because it seems like it could do. And then everybody's like, oh, you're swingers, and I'm like, maybe they are just going to be a throuple, because that'd be sweet, wouldn't it, if we got a little throuple out of it. Matty does say to Jake number 2, I'm not interested in you in that way. But then there is like a bit of a to and fro going on with him, like in his confessionals, where he's basically saying, I really want Jake number 2 to, that's how they all refer to him, Jake number 2. It's not, he just says, I really want Jake to stay. But like he just has to like figure out a way that can happen. So it's kind of like, oh, you know, is he gonna like pick to go with Jake just so that he can keep him? But I mean, I feel like it's fairly obvious that that's not what's going to happen, is it? We go into the kiss off, and Caleb and Jake like have their little kiss, and there is a bit of like, oh, you know, like will they, won't they sort of thing, but they seem to have resolved the issue the night before, in that, you know, like they're happy to be with each other still. He was just a bit taken aback by things, was Jake, but he made his feelings known, and it, like, to give Caleb his credit, he respected that, so that was all nice. Burmy and Gareth turn for each other and give each other a little smooch, and Danny's like taking the mick out of them because they do appear to be so bloody in love. DJ and Ross both turn for each other as well. And then and Dan and Ollie obviously turn for each other because they're all over each other like rashes, aren't they? And then we end up with Vito and Ben, and, you know, Vito's basically saying in his confessional, and this is where like my sort of theory about him trying to get Matty out of the way sort of comes into play a bit. So we see him saying like, I feel for Ben, like I have a lot of feelings for him still, so I'm just gonna have to go with my gut. And then it ends up with Danny says, you know, turn if you're interested in them, and Vito turns around and Ben doesn't. Another cliffhanger! I mean, it's fairly clear that Ben isn't going to be turning for Vito because he feels that his boundaries have been sort of, what's the word, like crossed and things, which I think, you know, completely fair enough for Ben. And it looks like there's going to be some more drama next week. Like, Ben's like, you know, just let it go sort of thing. And I'm like, oh, what's going on? What's happening then? We all kicking off? We're all having a kicking off drama party in here, yeah? So, I have been doing the spraying thing with my sponge, but I don't think it works for me. I think it picks up some of the makeup for me, personally. But maybe it's because, like, I'm wearing more makeup than it can really deal with. So we're just gonna waterboard myself. Don't open your mouth while you're spraying it, do you know what I mean? You would think I'd learn by now, but I never do. I'm not going to go and put on a little dress and some hair because I'm trying not to sweat because I do have to look nice for a performance. If you want to see what I look like, go onto Instagram because there's bound to be pictures on there because I love to take a picture. I hope that you enjoyed this video. Tell me what you think about the Vito Ben situation because I found it very uncomfortable quite a lot of the time and I wasn't enjoying it. I really do hope that you enjoy these videos because I am really into this programme. There are only 2 episodes left and then I think there's going to be like a reunion episode, which I'm excited to see because I want to know what's happening. Like, what's the tea with CJ and Ross because they don't follow each other anymore on social media. Unless they're playing like a clever game where they're like, let's throw them off the scent and actually they're like married with 10 dogs. As always, if you did enjoy this video, please make sure to like, subscribe, comment, share, all that good stuff. It would mean the world to moi. And my social media will be on at the very end. It's just Dominoe official on everything, so please follow me on TikTok and Instagram. Once again, I would be very, very happy with that. Thank you very much, thank you. And until next time, I shall see you all very soon. Bye! Maybe I should put some lipstick on the inside. But maybe not, because then you end up with it on your teeth, don't you? Oh, what should I do?